So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Where are you from and what do you do?
I am a nurse living in Los Angeles, working in Santa Monica and in Westwood. I was born and raised in Los Angeles, and I've been a nurse for a little over 8 years.
Where did you go to school?
I went to high school in Santa Monica, and then I went to college in San Francisco. I initially studied public health, and then I decided I wanted to be a nurse. And so I started school, so to speak, all over again. I went to a community college in Long Beach, and then I started working as a nurse, and then I completed a bachelor's and master's degree online.
What called you, what drew you to the nursing profession? Is it something that your family did?
My dad was in medical management while I was growing up, and I was raised by him. So I was always really intrigued by medicine. I thought, I would work with public health and help the homeless. I knew I wanted to be of service. Being raised a Catholic made me want to always be of service. And then when I got into public health, I kind of saw that the hands-on work seemed to be really cool and fun and constantly changing when you're working as a nurse. Seeing nurses, actually watching them work was inspiring and felt like something I could do and would enjoy doing.
Tatiana, you're a nurse in an ICU.
Correct.
This, I guess, leads us into the experience with your mom. What happened to her?
So my mom's name is Dina Connolly. She was born in Washington, D.C. She passed away April 30th of 2020 in Providence Hospital in St. John's in Santa Monica, which is where I work. She lived already with COPD, which is a chronic respiratory condition. She was living with HIV, so she was immunocompromised for years now. When she became infected with COVID-19, it was just too much for her system, and she really quickly declined into respiratory failure, needed to be placed on a ventilator, and was not responding to multiple clinical trials that, thank God to Providence, she was able to participate in. And so after 30 days on a ventilator, mentally she was almost like delirious, like she would sort of come to, but she wasn't quite able to respond. After multiple declines, I decided, since I'm her only child, based on the conversations that we'd had, that she had reached the end of her pipe.
What's her age in April of this year?
She was 64.
64.
Yeah, it was a very difficult decision to make because, she's so young and seemingly really active and seemed healthy to us.
I take it she didn't have an advance directive?
Not a formal advance directive.
Sure. How did she contract COVID-19?
We still are not sure. She was going to church. She was going to school. She was diagnosed prior to the formal shelter in place rules. Mm-hmm. She lived in a kind of like a senior living situation, which had certain shared spaces.
Was she in the same ICU that you worked?
She was. She was transferred to my unit for a higher level of care. Before that, she was in another facility that didn't have access to the convalescent plasma and the cerulumab. I mean, Providence St. John's had a ton of resources that she would not have been able to have access to if she would have stayed where she was.
Can you talk a little bit about what kind of conflict or comfort did you take in having your mom be your patient?
Yeah, it was very challenging. There were a few days where I was given the opportunity to transfer her and I didn't act because I was having a hard time setting a personal boundary for myself. Like, my job is such a sacred place for me. And then with the pandemic and with my husband having difficulty with his work because of the pandemic, my kids being out of school, it felt like my work was my safe place, There were visitor restrictions because of the PPE limitation, but because I wasn't using any extra supplies to visit with her, I was able to use my PPE that I had used all day and saved. I was able to use that to spend time with her and hold her hand and play music and let her know that she wasn't alone. Spending the time with her, I hope, was therapeutic for her and also therapeutic for me, so I didn't feel like I abandoned her during that time.